Hi kids! I am outdoor today, as you can see, sitting underneath a mango tree, and I'm going to be reading out a story for you from this really fat book that I have, and it's called The World's Best Fairy Tales. So you guys are in for a treat because these are some amazing fairy tales and each one of them has a little message for you. So you have to tell me whether you understood what the message was. I'll of course help you understand it, so don't worry about it. The story I'm reading today is called The Magic Kettle, and do you know, it says here that this is in fact a Japanese tale. So imagine, not only does India have a lot of fairy tales, but everyone across the globe has their own set of fairy tales, and we're going to be listening in on a Japanese one today. Before we start, I have a little surprise for you. This is what a kettle looks like. So I don't know if this one is a magic kettle. I haven't really tried it out yet. I hope it is. But you can heat water in this, you can make tea, you can just have hot water, and it's a cute little thing, isn't it? So we're going to be reading about a magic kettle that was owned by a Japanese man. Should we start? Let's begin then. Right in the middle of Japan, high in the mountains, an old man lived in his little house. He was very proud of his home and never tired of admiring the whiteness of his straw mats and the pretty papered walls, which in warm weather slid back to allow the fragrance of trees and flowers to come in, much like this background, I believe. One day, he was standing looking at the mountain opposite his home when he heard a rumbling noise in the room behind him. He turned around, and in the corner he beheld a rusty old iron kettle, which could not have seen the light of day for many years. Not seeing light of day is something like being hidden, so you don't really know that it's with you, but finally you find something after a really long time. How the kettle got there, the old man did not know, but he took it up and looked it over carefully, and when he found that it was quite whole, he cleaned off the dust and took it into the kitchen. That was a piece of luck, he said, smiling to himself. A good kettle costs money, and it is always well to have a second one in hand in case of need. My kettle is nearly worn out, and the water is already beginning to leak through this bottom. Then he took the old kettle off the fire, filled the new one with water, and put it in its place. No sooner was the water in the kettle getting warm than a strange thing happened, and the man who was standing nearby thought he must be dreaming. First, the handle of the kettle gradually changed its shape and became a head, and the spout grew into a tail, while out of the body sprang 4 paws. And in a few minutes, the man found himself watching not a kettle, but a living creature which the people of Japan call tanuki. It jumped off the fire and bounded about the room like a kitten, running up the walls and over the ceiling till the old man was in agony, lest his pretty room be spoiled. Oh, reminds me of Bimbo. Do you remember the kitten who was running around with Imogen and Jillian and his best friend Topsy? He cried to a neighbor for help, and between them they managed to catch the tanuki and shut it up safely in a wooden closet. Then, quite exhausted, they sat down and consulted together about what they should do with this troublesome beast. At length, they decided to sell it and asked a child who was passing by to send them a certain tradesman called Jimu. When Jimu arrived, the old man told him he had something which he wished to get rid of, and he lifted the lid off the wooden chest where he had shut up the tanuki But to his surprise, no tanuki was there. Nothing but the kettle he had found in the corner. It was certainly very odd. But the man remembered what had taken place on the fire and did not want to keep the kettle in his house anymore. So after a little bargaining about the price, Jimmu went away carrying the kettle with him. Now, Jimmu had not gone very far before he felt that the kettle was getting heavier and heavier. By the time he reached home, he was so tired that he was thankful to put it down in the corner of his room and then forgot all about it. In the middle of the night, however, he was awakened by a loud noise in the corner where the kettle stood and raised himself up in bed to see what it was. But nothing was there except the kettle, which seemed quiet enough. So where was all the noise coming from? Was the tanuki going to turn up in Jimmu's house? Let's see. He thought he must have been dreaming and fell asleep again, only to be roused a second time by the same disturbance. Boy, if I was living alone, I'd be scared of all these noises at night. Don't you think so? He jumped up and went to the corner, and by the light of the lamp that he always kept burning, he saw that the kettle had become the tanuki, which was running around after its tail. After it grew weary of that, the tanuki turned several somersaults on the balcony from pure gladness of heart. Oh boy, this tanuki seems like a cute little creature. The tradesman was much troubled as to what to do with the creature, and it was almost morning before he managed to get any sleep. But when he opened his eyes, there was no tanuki, only the old kettle he had left in the corner the night before. As soon as he tidied his house, Jimmu set off to tell his story to a friend next door. The man listened quietly and did not appear so surprised as Jimmu expected, for he recollected having heard in his youth something about a wonder-working kettle. Go and travel with it, display it, he said, and you will become a rich man. But be careful first to ask the tanuki's permission. It would be wise also to perform some magic ceremonies to prevent it from running away at the sight of people. That's a good idea. If you're going to use something, you should ask for permission before you actually start using it. Well, about the magic ceremonies, I don't think I'm so sure about that. I mean, do you believe in magic? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Let's see what happens though. Jimmu thanked his friend for his counsel, which he followed exactly. The tanuki's consent was obtained. A booth was built and a notice was hung up outside inviting the people to come and witness the most wonderful transformation that ever was seen. They came in crowds and the kettle was passed from hand to hand. They were allowed to examine it all over and even to look inside. Then Jimmu took it back and setting it on the platform, commanded it to become a tanuki. In an instant, the handle began to change into a head and the spout into a tail, while the forepaws appeared at the sides. Dance, said Jimmu, and the tanuki did its steps, moving first on one side and then on the other, till the people could not stand still any longer and began to dance too. Gracefully, the tanuki led a fan dance and glided without a pause into a shadow dance and an umbrella dance and it seemed as if it might go on dancing forever. Boy, Tanuki seems to be happy with all of this attention it was getting from people. Don't you think so? And very likely it would have if Jimmu had not declared that the Tanuki had danced enough and that the booth must now be closed. Day after day, the booth was so full it was hardly possible to enter it. And what the neighbor foretold came to pass, and Jimmu was a rich man. Yet he did not feel happy. He was an honest man and thought that he owed some of his wealth to the man from whom he had bought the kettle. That's true. It's not like the kettle belonged to Jimmu right from the beginning, so he must do something about it, shouldn't he? One morning, he put 100 gold pieces into the kettle and hanging it on his arm, he returned to the old man who had sold it to him. I have no right to keep it any longer, he added when he had told his story. So I have brought it back to you, and inside you will find 100 gold pieces. I have put it there as the price for its hire. The man thanked Jimmu, saying that a few people would have been as honest. And the kettle brought both of them good luck. Everything went well with them till they died, which they did when they were very, very old and respected by everyone. Wow, Jimmu is such a nice gentleman. He knew that the kettle didn't belong to him, and so he owed it to the old man who sold it to him. Well, I'm going to see if my kettle has any magic powers in it. Till then, I'll see you later.